Welcome to the BumbleKast. I'm your host, Ian Flynn, the Bumble King, and joining me is the genetically perfect co-host, Kyle Krause.
Man, I wish that were true. That would be fantastic.
I don't know. Can you really prove it's not true?
Yeah. I could.
Against what litmus?
How many diagnosed and undiagnosed diseases I have. Does that count?
Well, maybe that's the sign of your perfection, and the rest of us are just catching up.
Okay. I see. I'm so perfect that I am, because I'm surrounded by so much imperfection, I am prone to contracting diseases.
Yes.
Okay.
There's the rest of humanity struggling to catch up with you.
Okay.
We're weighing you down.
I understand now. Well, yeah. No.
Cast us off into sin, Crousdom.
I'm good. How are you doing, Ian? What's up?
As usual, I got so much going on behind the scenes that I can't talk about yet, but we're slowly inching our way closer and closer.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things is a very special BumbleKast perk that we will work towards once we reach a certain threshold. I'm super excited that this is even possible, but first off, I am very, very close to 4,000 followers on Twitter, which is insane. And it may even roll over by the time the show comes out. Once we hit that threshold, then I will announce some of what we're working towards, and the special guest musician who just might be doing a mix of the BumbleKast theme if we can get to a certain point. It's exciting. I want to tell you now, but I can't.
I'm gonna say it's really exciting. It's legitimately exciting. If you like music, you should be excited. And you like music, right? Especially video game music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very much so.
You should.
What about you, Kyle? What are you up to?
Well, I am just now discovering that Windows 10 apparently decided to do some updates today and changed a few things on me, so I'm now going to be fighting those for the duration of the show. So this is what I'm going to be dealing with for the entire time we're on. So thank you, Microsoft. You're wonderful.
The theme of today's topic is modification, so I guess it works out.
Sure. Just to give a little bit of the behind the veil of what's going on the BumbleKast. the things we deal with while recording this show.
If you hear Kyle suddenly combust, that is not an error on the playback. Kyle actually blew up into flame out of sheer rage.
I might. It might be enough to get me to switch to Linux, and then I get to deal with a whole new set of problems. Yeah, well, it's okay. I've already tried Linux multiple times. Windows and Linux have their own sets of problems each. So it honestly doesn't really matter. It's personal preference. So, anyway.
And right now, every Mac user listener is going, "Go Mac! Go Mac! Go Mac!"
And that's just a dressed up flavor of Linux, so it's all good. Well, okay. It's Unix. I'll be precise. It's Unix, but whatever. Anyway, so get extra nerdy on this episode with things nobody cares about.
Well, I know what they do care about, and that's prizes.
Prizes? I like prizes.
That's right. We have the BumbleRaffle, where every show somebody who's listening and either wrote in or is a patron over at patreon.com/BumbleKast gets thrown all into the pot, and we pick one, and they get a free autographed comic from yours truly. So this show's winner is...
Who is it?
Daniel H.
Daniel H?
Daniel H.
Yeah! Is this our first repeat winner?
No, I don't think Daniel's won yet.
Oh, really?
No, he's been on the show.
Yes.
He's been with us a ton, but I don't think he's won yet.
Yeah, he's been with us near the start. Man, wow, what? Man. Congratulations, Daniel. You finally got it. That's awesome. Well, being a long-time supporter, so I think you are very deserving of it.
Absolutely.
Oh, enjoy that book.
So, we're going to get in touch with you and figure out where we're going to send it to you.
Yeah.
Now, this news article that we're going to be talking about today, or which serves as the basis for today's discussion, I've seen this a few months ago, but it kind of cropped back up, and it was, I think, worth bringing up, is in the final nail in the coffin if you ever doubted that dinosaurs became birds. The scientists had, somewhere or another, modified the genes of these baby chickens when they were still embryonic and switched off the gene that makes the face form into a beak. Without that trigger gene, they actually manifested dinosaur-like snouts. Now, they were terminated before they ever came to anywhere near hatching, but the point is they showed that you have that lineage genetically and that it could be very easily and directly modified to reproduce it. Now, we'll get to the deeper side of the discussion in just a moment, but I think I speak for all of us when I say, why did you terminate them? I want my baby dinosaurs.
I just want dinosaurs. They don't have to be babies. They can just be dinosaurs. Dinosaur chickens. That sounds cool.
I want my cat-sized dinosaur. I want to buy my Iams and feed it to my dinosaur.
I wonder what they taste like.
We're not going to eat. Oh, actually,
that's going to be one of the first things we do. I mean, we're humans.
So, would that change the expression of taste like chicken to taste like dinosaur?
It might, depending on what they taste like.
Everyone goes to KFD now?
Maybe.
They replaced Colonel Sanders with John Hammond out of Jurassic Park?
Didn't they say that KFC no longer stands for Kentucky Fried Chicken? It just stands for KFC. Oh, marketing.
They also slapped an apron over Colonel Sanders trying to pretend he's not a Southern plantation owner, but, deep down, we know what it is. Yeah. It is delicious, heart-clogging chicken.
Yeah. It is delicious.
And potentially heart-clogging dinosaur meat. Come on, science!
Yes.
But to bring up that, speaking of Jurassic Park, wonderful line by Jeff Goldblum, it's not a matter of if we could, it's a matter of if we should. And that, I guess, is the real foundation of our topic today.
Sure. What do you think, Ian? Is this something we should be messing with? Should we be dabbling in the genetic manipulation and the godlike abilities beyond our knowing?
I am of the opinion that as long as it is done safely and ethically, yes. Crack the genome wide open, find out what we can do with it. Because throughout history, most major scientific advancements have been met with the caution of you're meddling in things you shouldn't have. Very early on, tests that showed how bacteria is the true causation of rot were met with skepticism because it was believed, I forget the exact term, but it was believed that materials just manifested a new state. It was thought that grain eventually turns into mice because when you leave it out and you don't attend to it, suddenly there's mice and there's no more grain. Obviously, the grain transmorgified into mice. Soup generated its skin and got rotten because that's just what soup does over time. When the scientists of the period would conduct their experiments and show that if you put them in a vacuum, if you remove them from the outside elements, they wouldn't change. Therefore, there's an outside cause. And they were met with skepticism because that's not how nature works.
Right.
Which is folly.
You could even go back all the way to the scientists that were criticized for saying that the Earth was round, or the Earth revolved around the sun rather than the other way around. I mean, it took quite a long time for that to be the general consensus of society rather than a really weird whack job. Oh boy, stay away from those people.
Exactly.
That idea. So
even today, not to get too political with it, but we have people who fight against the science of climate change and vaccination.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of the evidence that they fall back on is pseudoscience or clearly biased science, and in the minority. But because you slap it on somebody with doctor in their name or with a white lab coat, they believe it.
Or false studies that seemed scientific at the time, or were published in scientific journals, but then were found to be false. So
right,
that happens quite a bit.
And you have the matter of the GMOs, the genetically modified organisms, your plants and your animals that have been genetically made to be as they are. And I can understand the concerns with that because they need sufficient testing to show that what we have created hasn't made a byproduct that would be detrimental to us.
Right.
And they are. I think that aspect needs to be hammered home and trumpeted even more. But what we can do in a controlled environment with regular and steady testing can produce boons to us far faster than throwing it out in the wild and hoping something takes.
Right.
At the same time, you have to use a measure of discretion, of caution, that is not just for the sake of us, because, Kentucky Fried Dinosaur might be tasty, but what if it invents a new disease within us? Who knows? Birth of the lizard people. I don't want that, but that's why you need to test it beforehand and not at the expense of any living animal.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Kyle?
Personally, I am definitely for doing research into genetic manipulation, going deeper into what makes genes work, mapping the genome, all that good stuff. Essentially, genetic manipulation has been kind of happening since the beginning of time. It's just been on a much slower scale. We've just recently in terms of the existence of humanity, we've been able to manipulate genetics in specific ways rather than leaving it to evolution to manipulate genetics. So we get things like bananas without seeds, and bananas continuing to exist. Because if it weren't for genetic manipulation, we wouldn't have bananas. And I fall back on bananas a lot in this argument, so sorry if I bring up bananas again, but
the famous cross-Chiquita theorem.
I just like bananas. They're all right. They're not bad. They're pretty tasty. So, but yeah, I mean, with that sort of scientific study, there are certain things in this world that still exist specifically because we've done genetic manipulation through breeding or through actually getting in there and messing with the genetic material to create that. So, yes. I think that's a good thing. And honestly, the population of the United States, much less the entire world, is so large that manufacturing food is a lot better in terms of making sure that there's enough food and to essentially just be able to make things that otherwise wouldn't be able to make everywhere in the world or grow everywhere in the world. Like, there are certain locations where climate is a problem, or the ground is insufficient, or the weather patterns or the temperature are not ideal for certain things. So, essentially a lot of things that we kind of take for granted nowadays wouldn't exist without some form of genetic manipulation. So,
along the line of taking it for granted, case study right in front of us. Yeah, I'm talking about breeding us our own dinosaur, and I'm completely serious about that.
Right.
I want me my pet dinosaur.
We already
have.
Wasn't that a movie? My Pet Dinosaur?
I'm sure somewhere.
Yeah.
We already have genetically modified pets.
Right.
And that's any dog or cat that you have in your house.
Yes, yeah. Well, not even just dogs and cats. Guinea pigs, for example. My current pet of choice. Guinea pigs, cavies, they are specifically pet bred. They are found nowhere in the wild. There are similar animals found in South America, but they're not the same. So like most dogs, they don't exist in the wild either. Or cats.
Right. I mean, look at a Chihuahua. You think that's going to last 10 minutes outside of a house?
You'd be surprised. They're hardy little critters.
I mean, how amazing is this that you take something like a timber wolf, this huge, majestic, ferocious, powerful creature,
Mm-hmm.
and within a fraction of just the human existence, we've managed to turn that into Rottweilers and Dachshunds and Jack Russell Terriers and Chihuahuas and Great Danes. Just the huge variety of dog breeds out there come from very controlled breeding, which is genetic manipulation.
Right.
Therefore, to me, it makes perfect sense that if we can turn off certain gene triggers and turn a chicken into a Troodon, I'm going to teach it how to ride a tiny bicycle. I'm going to name it Copernicus, and it's going to be awesome.
I want a dinosaur that's big enough to be ridden. I mean, isn't that what we all want, really? Look at comic book covers. How many comic books have been adorned by somebody riding a dinosaur? You know how cool that looks? We need that coolness in reality. That coolness cannot be fiction forever. We need that now. We need
Come on down to Dino Dan's Roundup Rodeo Dino Show. You want to ride your sauropod? We got us one. You want to ride one of your ceratopters? Shoot, we got 3 different kinds. Come on down and beware the Tyrannosaurus. He don't like you.
We need Turok riding a T-Rex. That's what we need. We need that to be real.
Now, of course, there is as much fun as it would be, you need to take into account other things like what would the diet be?
Right.
You know, the food that we have available today was not available back then. You need to make sure that we would be able to provide a proper diet to these domesticated, perfectly bred creatures.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to take into account what happens if they get out, because we do have problems with stray cats, stray dogs, stray pets that either can't fend for themselves and thus meet very unfortunate ends in a cold and uncaring nature, or are too good at what they are and really throw off the balance of the local ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
These are all things we have to take into account.
Or
I still want Copernicus, but we can achieve it.
Or we
just have to be smart about it.
Yeah, or we get a Jurassic Park scenario and all bets are off. Don't even bother locking your doors because the dinosaur just gonna open it right up.
See, that's the problem. Is you can say as much as you want, we need to be smart about it.
Right.
Which is exactly what John Hammond's whole thing was. He spared no expense. He made sure that everything was in place, and you can't account for everything.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying we don't necessarily have to breed a, full-fledged dromaeosaur that could eat somebody off the street. We don't need to have a 40-story Mamenchosaurus or something walking around. No, just keep it small, keep it domestic, and who knows, maybe they would make for a suitable replacement for cattle or other beasts of burden. I really don't know how that would work out, but the idea is there.
Yeah. Well, we do have a sufficient replacement for cattle in the works, actually. I don't know if you've seen the stories about manufactured meat, or lab-grown meat, but apparently there have been quite a few leaps and bounds being made in that area recently, where they can grow meat in a lab that tastes pretty good, reportedly. Okay. It used to be kind of gross, but now it's actually apparently getting a lot better. So that's a step in the right direction, and that would be something that I think genetic manipulation would also factor into. So,
and of course, you have people immediately recoiling at the concept of it's not even meat off of an animal as nature intended. It's just a lump of sinuous protein that you grew in a lab, and I can understand the distaste for that.
Oh yeah, and the trepidation. Yeah, I understand, but I don't know. I feel kind of. I feel okay. You have to look at it because that's just me.
When you get down to it, that's all it is.
Right.
It's protein structured in a very specific, delicious way.
Right.
And if we can produce that in a manner that doesn't require hundreds of acres of field that doesn't promote deforestation, and if you really want to get on the PETA bandwagon, doesn't sacrifice the life of any animal, I don't know, give me my synth burger.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that personally, but that's personal thing. I can understand people's trepidation of being like, oh, that was grown in a lab. But, I mean, most, I would say that certain dairies and stuff are more like labs than just farms. But effectively, it's kind of similar.
The kind that you invade with a raiding party and get an extra drop off of and plenty of experience points.
Right, exactly.
Although I am curious if lab meat really is as good as the real thing, because I don't care what you tell me, a soy burger does not taste like a real beef burger. Mm-mm.
Oh, no, yeah.
No, sir.
Oh, no.
I've tried it. Not even close.
No.
I know protein is protein, but there is a distinction.
No. These aren't made with soy. These are direct genetic clones, basically, of real meat. So it's structured the same way genetically. Or at least that's the what they're attempting to do with it. I don't think they've quite perfected that yet, obviously, which is why it doesn't taste quite right still. But they're getting there. They're working on it. That's the great thing about science, is you can just keep going until it works. And if it doesn't ever work, then, well, you adjust it until it does. Or you just observe what happens. That's really the crux of science, is to just observe something and report on what you find, rather than trying to do something specific with it, unless you're trying to use the data you've collected to do something specific.
Right. And science is all about getting things wrong, figuring out why, and moving forward. Again, not to get too political with things, but very controversial side of studying stem cell research, where the initial stem cells were very hard to harvest in a way that would be ethically comfortable for everybody. Well, other countries that continued the research, going off of those initial findings, were able to find ways to generate them from just about any cell of the human body. So, a tiny gum graft, a little skin off your arm, and they can retroactively make it into a stem cell, which then can become anything else. They wouldn't have found that without starting somewhere.
Exactly.
Therefore, some of the early genetic modification studies that we're doing now, as spooky as they might seem at a distance, serve as a foundation for something else. We may never get Copernicus, might the life of a little dinosaur. But because they are able to find out how to switch off that genetic marker in a chicken, it might be able to be enough to show how it would similarly relate to somewhere in the human genome, or all of a sudden we can turn off Alzheimer's.
Right. Yeah, we can turn off the genetic diseases within humans, animals, plants, anything, really. That would be great.
And I understand the concerns that, what if it becomes too much of a push for eugenics? Now, if you can alter the genome, why don't you make people as perfect as Kyle? And I can understand that concern, but at the same time, if I have a choice of knowing whether or not I can turn off a debilitating disease, I'll take it.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't want to have the scenario where you can make your baby as you want in the womb. That's creepy. That removes the choice of the individual.
That's also intensely expensive. Would be intensely expensive and well beyond the reach of most people. So I don't think we have to worry too much about designer babies, but it could come to that eventually.
At the same time, if we had a child on the way and, with genetic screening, we could see, they're going to be born with this horrible defect that's going to ruin the rest of their lives. They probably won't reach 15. Or we can switch that off. You better believe I'm going to be reaching for that switch.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
There are dangers. There are concerns. And there are definitely evils that are all potential from this research. But I think ultimately the good outweighs the bad. The potential for changing all of our lives, the human condition in general, I think far outweighs the spooky, but what if they do a bad thing with it? I bought a pair of scissors. It's to open up the bags of chips. Yes, I could use it to go on a stabby spree, but that's not what they're for. And the good of all those chips that I'm opening to one day feed to Copernicus outweighs the potential stabby hazard.
Is a stabby spree the most dangerous thing you can do in Canada? I'm just asking.
Oh, that crazy American, he's got his scissors again, eh? Yeah, but he can't make it out the front door. He can't figure out he's got to switch hands. All right. Just pass him another bag of Doritos. He'll be fine.
Sorry, I just thought that was like, you're in Canada. I guess that's really the most you could probably get away with, huh?
Nah, to be fair, we have some shootings up here.
I know. I'm being,
national
I'm
average, the entire national average is less than most major metropolitan cities in the States, but that's another topic.
I was being facetious, sir.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay. But yes.
Man, I really want chips now.
I really want dinosaur chicken.
Well, to distract us from our hunger, let's move on to something that the people really want, and that's the Q&A!
Ah, yes! Maybe they'll ask about some genetic manipulation in the Sonic world. I don't know what's with that. Well, I guess roboticization would be genetic manipulation. Genetic to mechanical.
Or microwaving eggs because you had a nightmare. But let's not get into that. What we're going to get into is the patron-sponsored Q&A first and foremost. Everyone who asks a question, either on Twitter with the hashtag BumbleKast to Ian Flynn BKC or at Kyle Kraus JCRB, gets put on the list. You can also, email it to BumbleKast@yahoo.com or ask it on the patron website itself. And all of those get put on a big old master list that we are slowly chipping away at. But if you want your question answered now, toss us a few dollars, go over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, and you get to be bumped to the head of the line.
Yes. Please note, we are still working through the list. I still have questions on this list from way back on the BumbleKast, Bumble King forums. So we're slowly but surely working through them. And we'll
2015,
we'll get to yours
2016?
eventually. Yeah, 2015 was when we launched the show in October. So I'm fairly sure I've cleared out most of them, but there's still some stragglers left. So if you've been waiting patiently all this time, thank you. And hopefully we get to your question soon. If you feel it's been an extremely long amount of time since we've gotten your questions, like over a year maybe, that we haven't answered like any of your questions, which I think we've pretty much hit like questions, at least one question from just about everybody, unless they only had one question. But yeah, just hit me up on Twitter at KyleJCRB, and I'll try to try to see if I can prioritize a little bit. I'm not making any promises, but it's something I could try to work for. So anyway.
Or you get guaranteed priority over at patreon.com/BumbleKast. Don't undersell us, Kyle.
Right, exactly. If you do become a patron and you've already asked questions, also let me know because I may miss that. So I can bump up your questions into the priority queue. So, all right, let's get started with this first question from Sam Cybercut. Are there any supporting characters from Sonic Boom who you haven't had a chance to write yet, but would like to in the future?
Oh, I guess maybe give a little more to Zoe. She seems nice. That's just the only one that springs to mind. And the strongest supporting cast is Orbot and Qbot, and they're delightful. And Dave the intern, who I think gets a ton of screen time as it is. So, I'm pretty good.
I am not familiar with Zoe at all, actually. She must be later in the series?
No, she was in late season 1.
Okay. Well, yeah, I haven't even gotten that far yet.
Okay.
But
suffice to say, she kind of has a thing going with Tails.
Okay. Yeah.
It's sweet. It's simple. It's nice.
I guess I could see that, so long as it doesn't turn it into Fiona's situation.
No, 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 no. Also, no.
No. Anyway, next question comes from Chris A. What is Conquering Storm's real name?
Conquering Storm.
It's a good name.
It's a ringer. It works.
It fits. It works for me. Is she just Conquering Storm now, or is she still fully Bride of the Conquering Storm?
Just Conquering Storm. The Bride moniker went out with the old continuity.
Okay. That's what I thought, since I haven't seen the Bride moniker in a while since the new continuity, but I wasn't sure.
I mean, I think I could have brought over the Bride moniker, but I would have had to rebuild most of the houses.
Right.
Just to preserve the purpose behind the name. And I figured, why bother at that point? Conquering Storm's a cool enough name to stand on its own. And she's a fan favorite. She doesn't need any title.
No, and she's a cool enough character to stand on her own that you don't need to worry about necessarily dragging the whole baggage of her backstory with her. So, yeah, she's awesome. All right. And that's it for the priority Q&A. Let's get into some standard Q&A. First one comes from John M. If Ian were to ever write for Pokemon, what direction would you take the anime? Would Ash finally win a league?
Oh my goodness. That is a good question. I guess it would depend on what game it's being based off of, because I think that would inform a lot of where I would want to take it. I think it's really interesting that, not that I've seen a ton of it, but the Sun and Moon based one seems to be very, very comedic, as opposed to the fairly standardized adventure anime that it was before that. Mm-hmm. So cool on them for doing something bold and new with it. I guess it really would depend on what it's being based off. If it was a kind of standalone season, it might be interesting to take Ash back to the previous areas that he's been, revisit some characters that we haven't seen in a while, kind of make it a world tour of his life. If the game had a certain theme that the season was being based on, build stories around that. But yeah, give him a league win. Maybe not necessarily a perfect league win, but he's earned it at this point. He needs to get there. He needs them fancy titles and badges and whatnot.
Now, maybe it's just I'm out of touch because I haven't even seen this show since 20 years ago, roughly, thereabouts. I don't think it's quite existed 20 years ago, but pretty close. I assume Ash is still the main character?
Yep, Ash is still the main guy.
Okay.
I think there was a very small interim where it was the main character out of Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, but that didn't stick.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
I was just curious because I know that Ash... Well, I don't think Ash has ever appeared in any of the mainline games, right? At least not in a...
There is...
I mean, there might be some cameos or something, but...
Yeah, there's... Actually, Sun and Moon was the first major set.
Okay.
In that you can receive his Greninja from the anime. Like, it is distinctly his because it has a special transformation where it kind of looks like him.
Ah, okay.
And there's a special, I'm going to call it a boss encounter for lack of a better term, where there's a photograph on the wall of Ash, distinctly Ash, with Pikachu.
Interesting.
I know a lot of the fans of the show were put out because the last season finale, he got to the final round of the league and lost. I think he goes on to save the world after that, so he comes out on top. But the point is, after so long, here he is at the finals, and he loses.
Sounds like...
I watched the episode, and from what I remember, it was a pretty decent loss. It wasn't like he got completely blown out, but, after all this time, you kind of want your boy to come home a winner.
That's our Ash, apparently.
He did take it gracefully, though.
Sure. And he saved the world, so it's all good.
Yeah.
That's a bigger reward than just a league. Anyway, next question comes from Devin W. Why did you write Eggman to put paralysis chips in his egg bosses instead of bombs? Too morbid?
A little bit. Not so much morbid as violent, because in a way, the paralysis chips are a worse fate.
Yeah.
It was also to just switch it up a bit, to better underline the fact that this is the new continuity. We're doing something different, going in a new direction. And if we just had the same thing over again, it's like, it muddies the waters. So Eggman needs a way to control his free-willed subjects. The bombs were a little too much. The paralysis chip allowed us to rein back on the direct violence and, again, illustrate that this was the new continuity.
Uh-huh. And I mean, come on. It's not like Eggman's Amanda Waller or anything. He's not gonna put bombs.
No, he's much taller.
That's true. He's not gonna put bombs in his subjects. Why would he do that? If he blows them up, then he can't use them again. If he paralyzes them, at least he could switch out their robotic or switch out their paralyzed parts for robotics, and then they're kind of have to be they have to be loyal to him then.
I would give a pretty penny to be able to write a Waller Eggman scene. That would be interesting.
That'd be interesting, actually. Yeah, man. Yeah, I've been reading some DC stuff lately. Amanda Waller's a pretty fun character, but
no, she's great. She's one of the best parts of Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. All right, last question comes from Kane Jackson at Kane Jackson on Twitter. I wonder, can Bunny still use the bathroom or eat? If she can't, that sucks for her. Eggman's a real jerk for what he did. Well, he's always a real jerk, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I had a nickel for every time I got this question.
Yeah, I know.
I'm pretty sure we've covered this on the show.
I don't think. I don't think so. This is
really?
The only time Yeah, this is the only time I think I ever got this question.
Really?
Which might be why we, or why nobody asked it before, because they figured, oh, somebody asked that at some point. But yeah,
well, shut my mouth.
Yeah.
All right. My apologies. So, anyway, yes, she can do all that stuff. In the pre-reboot continuity, it was a question of what the roboticized parts could do, and I summed it up as saying they had parallel functions to the real organs they were based on. In the post-reboot continuity, we specifically designed her to show that it was just the legs that were roboticized, not anything above, arm notwithstanding, just so that we didn't have that question anymore. Because we got that question a lot.
When was the reboot? When did the reboot happen?
That was issue 260.
What year?
Oh, shoot.
Was that 2016, 2015? Because if it was if it was like late 2015 or 2016, then this question is from before the reboot.
I thought the Bumble forums were closed for much longer than they were, so my concept of time is not the best.
Or at least very, very soon after the reboot started. So that might be why you're not getting this question anymore.
Well, the point is, we had it now. It's been answered. It's out there.
Right.
And in a year when I forget about it and somebody asks about it, I can go, oh, I don't think we've answered that. And someone can go, yes, you did. And I feel dumb.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I keep all the notes of all the questions we answer, so I can refer back if we need to. So, well, not all some of the earlier episodes I forgot to document the questions, but I can just go back and listen to them. I mean, it's not like I can't do that. I'm just lazy. Anyway. That's it for the Q&A for this episode of the BumbleKast.
Before we sign off, we're going to give a big shout out to all the patrons who make this show possible. You guys are incredible, and really and truly, we value every single one of you. Shout out goes to Daniel H. Thank you again, and congratulations on your win. Zephyr Flame, Chris A., Demo, Duis Dizdin, John B., Sam Cybercat, Deus Miles, Mike B., Fancy Fool, Connell T., Samuel P., Justin G., Jennifer R., Frogman, Candy, for now, Aaron F., John M., Yes, Yavarovich 9X, Alex P., and James K.
You are all awesome and the best ever. You are prime genetic examples. All of you. Every one of you. You are perfect genetically. And just perfect in general.
If you need to catch up with what I've got going on, go over to bumbleking.com or check me out at Twitter at IanFlynnBKC.
You can find me at KyleJCRB on Twitter or at kngi.org, where you can find archived MP3 versions of this show and many, many others, including my regular weekly show, Game Fuel, streaming live every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on 8bitax.com, or you can find the archived episodes of that also at kngi.org.
That's going to wrap us up for BumbleKast episode 41. We'll see you next week for BumbleKast Gaming, and then in 2 weeks for BumbleKast episode 42. Take care, everybody.
Bye!
Never mind Copernicus. We need to genetically engineer a Bumble King.
I wonder what that tastes like.
You're not eating my mascot, Kyle!
We can make more than one.
Of course, now I am curious.
Well, yeah, of course you're curious. Everyone's curious about what things taste like. That's how we survived. We taste things to make sure they're good. If they're not good, we don't eat them anymore.
Or we find ways to make them edible.
True. I mean, we did invent steak sauce for a reason, I guess. I don't use steak sauce, but I use barbecue sauce sometimes, depending on what it is. It's delicious. I'm gonna put barbecue sauce on my dinosaur chickens.
Oops.
Might be pretty good. I'm gonna have me a shredded dinosaur chicken barbecue sandwich. I'm gonna do that. You're not gonna stop me.
There's a joke in there about it tasting oily and making fossil fuels part of the punchline, but I can't make it work.
Well, hey, good old 10W40.
How's that for steak sauce?
Oh yeah, Eggman approved.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening to the BumbleKast. If you like the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button and consider supporting us on Patreon. We have some great rewards, as well as big plans to make the show even better. Also, rate and review the show on iTunes. It gets more folks listening and really helps us out, so we definitely appreciate it. Original music by Ken Coda Snyder, used with permission. Find more of his music at bc.s3m.us and find the theme song at noisechanradio.bandcamp.com. Available as a pay-what-you-want download.